So we didn't have the best of races this week, but I think for the start of an F1 season, it's not been too bad so far. I think we've been a bit lucky that the season's been so good at the start. Um, yeah, Portuguese Grand Prix, another Hamilton win. How did you find it, Ash?
Um, yeah, it was interesting to start with. Um, it was good to see that Red Bull are still there with Mercedes to a degree. The midfield wasn't too bad. It was going backwards, but yeah, it all happened towards the beginning, really, didn't it, Dan? And then it kind of lulled out a bit. What about yourself?
Yeah, as you said, I think initially it was more the tire temperatures and sort of, especially for those that were sort of started on the mediums, it was a little bit tricky. And then once they sort of settled in, it yeah, there wasn't a lot happening throughout the race. But I thought the little battle with between Mercedes and Verstappen was quite good. That was quite enjoyable. There was quite a few things happening throughout the midfield, but yeah, compared to the first two races, it's not going to be a memorable one. It's not as memorable as last year's Portuguese Grand Prix, but you know we can't have exciting races every race. It was still a close race. It's not like we had somebody run away with it, which is great. Good, as you say, good to see Verstappen still mixing it in there. Yeah. So Bottas got away at the start very nicely, I have to say, and yeah, followed by Lewis. Verstappen stuck with them. They sort of pulled away at the start. It was Perez, I think, lost a place to? Did he lose a place to a Ferrari?
It was Leclerc, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a nice little scrap there in the midfield to start.
It was definitely good to see. I don't know if Perez would have had a huge influence on what was going on ahead if he did pass Leclerc at the start rather than getting stuck behind. Good to see the moves, Hamilton on Bottas and Verstappen as well. It's good to see that Verstappen's got the pace with the Mercs. Obviously, with the start finish straight being so long, you could see the Merc engine still has, I think, a bit more grunt than the Honda engine. But it's good to see that they're not running away with it like they were.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, I definitely don't. I don't know. I would like to think Perez would have had a bigger impact if he got past Leclerc quicker or made a better start. But at this point, it's still. Still think it's too early in the season to kind of gauge where with every moment.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. So we had Bottas, Lewis, Verstappen getting away at the start fairly well. We had a safety car pretty quickly with Kimi having a very bizarre incident. I mean, it looked like a really bizarre crash. It didn't look like it should have happened at all. And it hit his teammate on the rear left, and his wing just came off. It was a bit of a mess. Uh, I read somewhere that it was something to do with him changing a switch on the car on the wheel, and it just hit him. Very. I'm
You,
surprised Giovinazzi didn't actually end up with a puncture from that. To be perfectly honest.
did you think it was a case of Kimi looking down rather than ahead?
Yeah,
Because I think the overspeed that he suddenly got was quite immense as well. So like he had the room on the left, but obviously wasn't paying enough attention. But it was strange to see the two alphas tangle. I do think the safety car was kept out for a lap longer than what was needed. Um, yeah, there was just a bit of an odd one, but props to the marshals and everyone. That was cleared pretty quickly.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And then that led obviously to the restart, which was probably one of the more entertaining parts of the race. Bottas looked like he was going to go to the restart line, but he actually jumped a little bit before, and that caught Lewis out a bit, I think. And then Verstappen was all over him, and he lost that place, didn't he? He lost that place on that restart.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it was quite amusing afterwards when Lewis mentioned that he was actually quite annoyed. He was quite angry that had happened, and he knew it was his own fault. But it was quite good to see that. And then obviously, um, Lewis got them back later in the race. But yeah, it was really good to see Verstappen sort of mixing it with the Mercs that way. And
Yeah.
he's very
Yeah. No,
sort
I
of
agree.
on it. He just seems to. He's just got that killer instinct at the moment. I mean, he did make a mistake at one point when Lewis got him, but he's driving very, very well. And it just seems to be
I agree.
these slight mistakes at the minute that are sort of costing him at times. I mean, he could have quite easily won the first three races. I mean, they had the fastest car in qualifying as well, but he just didn't quite hook up the lap.
He was following behind Bottas. He kept making a couple of mistakes and running wide on a
Hmm.
few corners. Um, but I still don't understand like how Bottas understands the Merc. It's like we know he's a good driver. We know he can win races, and that race was there for him to win. He did a fantastic restart under the safety car, pulled the gap, and then that was the end of it. Yes, there was a sensor issue later on in the race, which he was down on power for a lap or two until they fixed it. But again, he was overtaken by Hamilton
Yeah,
and Verstappen.
he'd already lost the race by that point.
Yeah, it was just what was it a strategy call? Was he overworking the tires more than the other two drivers? Was it just the way how he drives compared to the circuit characteristics? So we know he's quick. You know, he did qualify on pole, but again, just over the course of a race distance, the other two drivers have just got that little extra. Um, and they, that's
I did see an image of that somebody posted on Twitter to do with the fact that it looked like Bottas was running more rear wing than Lewis. Lewis looked like he had a skinnier wing on his car, which would sort of
okay.
explain a little bit sort of how things were with him getting overtaken on the straights.
Yeah,
Um, but then you would expect that Bottas, especially with him running at the front, even if he did have a little bit more wing on there, he would have been a lot. He should have been quicker through the corners essentially, and have
most
been
likely
able to
should have been.
maintain that lead a bit more, to not have to worry about the straights. But
Well, because yeah, sorry, Karen.
yeah, it's again, it's just the race day issues that he has. He never he always seems to struggle. It's always yeah. I just can't find the words to be honest because it's getting to the point now where
Yeah,
you just expect it to happen. You expect him
yeah,
to
I'd
go
say he's been.
backwards. I said before the race. Don't be surprised if he finishes third or fourth. Finish third. You just expect when he's wheel to wheel with Lewis and Max that he's going to lose out.
Yeah, it's just strange because, like we say, we've definitely seen him be able to beat anybody on his day, but it's the lack of his days that seem to be hindering him. I mean, you know, they all want to be drivers' world champion. Just on the past few races, he's still and it's he doesn't want it to be the Lewis and Max show, but unfortunately, he's now falling into position after after four races in, where he really needs to kind of get a couple of victories to kind of throw himself back in there. Um,
Yeah, and
it's definitely
don't see
strange.
signs of that happening. I
No,
mean,
no, no, I'd
his
agree.
qualifying performance, yeah, you know. it was good, but you know, the other drivers probably could have done better than what they did. I think he was
Mm,
probably on the limit. Uh, yeah, it's a difficult one. I honestly thought like with especially after the first race with how close we know Red Bull are,
yeah.
Bottas is just going to struggle. I mean, he struggled with his teammate. When it becomes an inter-team battle, you know that the teams at some point are going to prioritize one driver over the other.
Mm,
Bottas is very, it's not going to be long before he's in that supporting driver role, and he'll have to support Hamilton for the championship. It's, you know, races go by very quickly.
yeah.
So if he's going to do anything, he'll need to do it this coming weekend. I mean, is he behind Lando in the championship? I think Lando's
I
third,
think so.
isn't
Yeah.
he? So, how? Like he should be. I mean, sure, he got speared by Russell, but again, he shouldn't have been in that position. So it's yeah, it's looking pretty bad. I mean, I saw there was articles on Twitter again from various websites talking about how Bottas is potentially going to be axed before the end of the season. I mean, it's like crazy season and everyone's coming up with conspiracy theories and things, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
be
a bit.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we said it. We said it in previous episodes. Don't be surprised if Bottas costs them the constructors' championship this year.
He's 5 points behind Norris in fourth, and he's already 29 points behind Verstappen.
And how many behind Lewis?
Lewis is on 69, and Bottas is on 32.
Oof,
7 points.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so 37-point difference after 4 races. And yeah, Verstappen obviously is only 8 points behind. I mean,
This
Bottas is
is
only
mad.
4 points ahead of Leclerc.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, 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 he's on Leclerc's on 28. In fifth, Bottas is on 32. And Perez is on 22.
Perez is just getting his foot in, and he's starting to. I think he'll come good in the next couple of races. We've seen
Yeah,
glimpses of his pace. I mean that qualifying lap at Imola was very very good. So I think he'll come good on the pace. You've got to give it to Leclerc though. I mean, damn, he's really pushing that Ferrari at the minute. That Ferrari is not brilliant, but he can do something with it. He always seems to be able to do something with any car he's in, really. But it's impressive stuff. And Sainz is not doing bad with that Ferrari either. What do you think of Ferrari so far? What did you think about them during the race?
I think Ferrari have made steps forward they were looking for. I don't think they want to be at the front. But I don't think they can be disappointed with either driver with how they're getting on.
Yeah,
Obviously, they made a mistake in Portugal with points, pitting him early onto the mediums. Obviously, wasn't the way forward, so he dropped back to 11th. Leclerc finished sixth, only 4 seconds behind Norris.
yeah, it was
So
pretty close. Yeah,
they've got to take positives away from that. I do think it'll be a Ferrari McLaren battle for third in the constructors. It'll be interesting to see Spain. Obviously, Spain used to be until all the COVID malarkey was the test circuit to find out where everybody was. I do think we'll see more of what the hierarchy is coming out of Spain.
yeah,
Um, it's going to be interesting, but I definitely think Ferrari are moving forward in the right direction.
definitely, definitely. And I think another team that sort of seems to have moved forward this weekend was Alpine. They seem to have a pretty solid qualifying with Ocon. Alonso didn't fare too great, but in the race he was very good, and they seem to do really well on the hard tire. the car just sort of came alive, and they actually had really good pace. I mean, Alonso, I think, had the same pace as Lewis at the front at one stage. So
It's
yeah,
gonna be interesting.
it's interesting to see, because obviously they're still working out that car as well. I think a few teams are still sort of struggling with tires and getting them into the window, but the Alpine, when it's running well, it seemed to show some of that pre-season pace that we saw. I mean, pre-season it actually looked pretty good,
Yeah.
and then we got to the first race, we're like, okay, well, what's happened to the Alpine? But this last
Well,
race,
compared,
that
yeah.
glimpse, I kind of feel like there is pace in that car, and they just haven't got the tires and things worked out. Maybe.
Yeah, so looking at the obviously the Alpine cars compared to where they finished, they were about 65 seconds behind the Mercedes, and comparing that to Imola as well, it was a similar kind of time. So finishing distance between the Merc and the Alpine was consistent for two races. Uh, Again, it's going to be with the mid pack. It's going to be interesting to see how the cars differ from track to track.
Yeah.
More aero inclined. Um, the undulations were in Portugal. It seemed to not affect the Alpine. So I think they've got a solid base to kind of move forward. And towards the end of the season, we could be seeing a McLaren, Ferrari, Alpine midfield probably. Um, Aston are completely struggling with the car, with the rake changing this year. Um, so they'll probably be the best of the back of the pack, just judging by how they've been recently.
Yeah,
I definitely
Aston.
think Alpine have moved forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alpine have definitely took a couple of steps forward this last couple of races, and yeah, this weekend just gone, they seem to find something, and I think Alonso did as well. He seemed to really find something in the race, and I think you could be right. I think they could be sort of up there with Ferrari and maybe even McLaren if they keep improving at this rate. It could get pretty spicy. But on the note of Aston, Vettel
Hello?
did get into Q3, didn't he? He qualified, was it 10th?
Yeah, he's 10th.
And I honestly can't remember where they finished in the race because I barely remember seeing them.
Vettel was 13th, Stroll was 14th, and they were both
Jeez.
lapped.
Oh,
So yeah. So obviously Aston are struggling, and obviously with the rule change. But on the flip side of that, we had AlphaTauri that were really strong in testing, and again they're struggling. Um, Gasly was 10th this race, and Snowden finished 15th. So it's interesting to see the fact that they looked really strong in testing. They're still struggling themselves as well. What do you think?
yeah. I think just like we said with Alpine, it could be that they just haven't managed to get the setup right. Or they're just struggling to get the tires in the window. They've got inexperienced drivers, I suppose, in comparison, but obviously you've got a rookie. Gasly's pretty experienced now, but Sonoda's really not found his footing yet, and Alpine's got Alonso, who's got a lot of experience, but he's been out a little while, and then
Hmm.
Ocon. So I think both teams are probably just struggling a bit with tire windows and setups and things. But I think there's definitely potential in those cars. I mean, as you say, we saw it in testing.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time before AlphaTauri sort of get things together as well.
Hmm. Well, I think they said on the broadcast that Pirelli went a step harder with the tires this year than they did last year,
Yeah, yeah,
for Portugal. So I wonder if that had an effect as well. Well, for everybody, I guess.
yeah. And I think they
It was
were
just
saying, a lot of the drivers were saying that the tires were a step too hard for this race in particular as well.
yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see though the teams that coped better with that. like as we say, Alpine seem to really respond well to having that harder compound. So yeah, I think it's going to be again. It's going to be interesting going to Spain and seeing how those teams perform because we're going to get a better idea of
Oh, without doubt.
performance
Yeah.
because it's the standard track for it. We're used to it with testing, as you said. So
Hmm.
yeah, let's wait and see what they can do. But I
So
think
while
yeah, sorry, carry
yeah,
on.
w- as well, I was just going to say. So while we have them going backwards, bring a let's look at a bit of the positives and look at Ricardo going forwards. How do you think he
Yeah,
handled that race?
I mean that qualifying was brutal for him, weren't it?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Oh, I did feel quite sorry for him. I know a lot. He's getting a lot of stick from people at the minute. People saying that, oh, obviously he's not very good and he's not as
Yeah,
good a driver as everybody seems to make out. But we know he's a good driver. It's not, you can't. There's no way he's gone from how he's been the last few seasons to this.
yeah,
I know all his skill just happens to disappear. He doesn't work like that. He
yeah,
drove a great race. Had a great race. The McLaren seemed very, very good. Like it has done at every track so far in all conditions. That McLaren just seems, yeah, it just seems like a nice car to drive.
yeah. It's definitely interesting seeing how Norris and Ricardo are handling the car. I definitely think Ricardo will get up to speed. Um, he finished roughly 25 seconds behind Norris. Um, so I definitely think I don't know if it's a tire getting the tires into the window quicker or if it's a particular handling characteristic of the car. Um, but he definitely showed some pace last race, even
Hmm.
though he wasn't up where McLaren wanted him to be. He definitely showed that he can drive that car and move it forward, which is what they want to see.
I mean, he finished in the points,
Yeah,
didn't he? So
yeah, he finished ninth. I definitely it wasn't it definitely was a surprise him going out in Q1. Um, that was a surprise,
yeah, big time.
but again, I don't know if something just caught him out or he was struggling, but again, the form book goes out the window next season, so well, like it does every season.
True.
But we can definitely, as long as he's moving forward, I think McLaren will be happy.
Yeah, as long as he's getting points and improving and just getting used to the team, I think, as you say, next year is going to be a very big year for McLaren. And
Yeah,
it's great that they've got Lando there, who's just absolutely. I honestly don't know of a driver who is on better form at the minute. I really don't.
it's definitely the surprise for the season. Well, I would surprise. I think it's too harsh.
Well,
But
I don't
how
know.
he performed last season.
I think he did perform well last season, but I think a lot of people going into this season thought that he would be outclassed by Daniel Ricciardo. That genuinely, there was
Yeah,
a lot
true.
of people that were like, "Oh well, we're gonna see him get absolutely destroyed now, and we'll see how good he really is, or how bad he really
Yeah,
is what they were implying." But he's shown himself to be top tier, absolutely just on form and performing well. I mean, you only have to look at we've spoken about Alpine already, but Ocon made a move on Lando earlier in the race,
yeah,
and well, it wasn't looking great at that point. But then Lando pulled out this absolute blinder of an overtake around the outside of him,
yeah,
and you just think, yeah, he's definitely on it. Like he's just got everything now. I mean, his racecraft now is just yeah. I haven't seen him make a mistake.
yeah. I think that's the
Other
thing.
than when he exceeded track limits in qualifying,
Yeah,
I haven't seen him make a mistake in the race. And even though you've got drivers like Verstappen who are driving extremely well, making mistakes in the heat of the moment,
mm,
I haven't seen that from Lando at all.
yeah,
So I think I'd say he's
yeah.
definitely the on form driver.
It definitely wouldn't. If I would definitely be surprised if he didn't finish in the top five this season. I'd be really surprised.
Very. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. So, moving on from McLaren, let's talk a little bit about Williams. Williams. George Russell with a blinding qualifying, by the way.
Yeah, you got to give him props for quality, but that car just looks all kind of all kinds of not as bad as the Haas, mind you, but it's still not a great race car, is it?
It's really not.
But judging by what they were saying, like if it's within a certain window, it's easily like you said, you put it 11th.
Yeah, and he was close to Q3 as well. He was
Yeah,
very close on the times.
yeah, he put it 11th, and he was one, he was 8 tenths off pole. And then obviously, yeah, if it's outside of that window, it just goes backwards and seems to be really undrivable. It's good that he seems to have a handle on it more than Latifi does.
Yeah.
Um, it's really strange that they don't know what they're going to get one weekend to the other. I guess. Um, yeah, just I hope they can sort it out. I don't think they'll be able to sort out all the issues for the season, but they're moving forward and they're getting closer and closer to those points they desperately need and deserve.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously I mean I think even Russell said it himself, it's just getting the tires into the working window and it's just not they're struggling to do that in the race. In
Yeah,
qualifying, they've got quite good pace. I mean, you know, he nearly beat Vettel the 10th. He was very close.
yeah,
And that just shows you the step that they've taken. I mean, it also shows you the massive step backwards that Aston have made this year. But,
yeah,
you know, that Williams is definitely a hell of a lot better than it was last year. And George is really wringing the neck on it and in qualifying. It just needs to come together in the race. Which to be
yeah, I
fair,
agree.
in Imola it was.
Yeah.
He was doing very well with it in Imola until, you know, the incident. So
Yeah,
yeah.
just I just find I just still don't know. Still don't know how I rate Latifi. He still hasn't. In the first four races of the season, he still hasn't shown much, and he lost out to Schumacher last race.
Yeah. I got really
So
confused, you know.
it's
I got really confused because at one point Latifi went past Russell.
yeah,
And then I think like partway then through the race, a bit later on in the race, I was looking at the times and I was like, hold on a second, he's 20 seconds behind Russell. I was like,
mm,
what? How?
yeah. There's quite a bit of a difference, and then he lost out to Schumacher. It's
And then
just
he lost out to
I don't
Schumacher,
know.
who was like a full, I think he was like a full
Yeah.
minute in front of Mazepin.
Oh, he was over a minute.
Was
He
it
was over a
over a
minute in front
minute?
of
Oh
Mazepin.
my god.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And that sums up
Don't need to
Haas.
say any more about that.
I,
Yeah, it
I do
does.
honestly like it. It sums up Haas and Mazepin really. I mean, Schumacher's clearly doing a much better a job with that car than the Mazepin is, which I think we all
Just
expected.
well, it wasn't just that. It was it was how many it was over at least five blue flags. When
Oh
um,
yeah,
Perez was trying to overtake Mazepin.
and he nearly
Five,
took his
you
wing
know,
off.
he took me off.
Perez
Yeah.
locked up and nearly lost his front wing. Can you imagine the rage from
Uh,
Perez if that had happened? Oh, it was bad.
yeah,
It was bad.
we don't need to say
But
any more about Haas, really, do we?
we're
Unfortunately.
not. You know, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. This is the thing. I don't think anyone is surprised.
It's a shame. It's like Haas have got some great personnel,
They do.
but they've.
They
I
really
feel like
do.
I feel like they've become the joke team,
Hmm.
and in the nicest way possible. All the issues they had with Grosjean and oh god, mine's gone.
Magnussen.
Um, Magnussen, that's it. All the issues they had with them either colliding or crashing out, and where they finished, issues that they've had. You kind of never really, you're never expecting them to be anywhere else but at the back, I guess. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but over the past few years, they've definitely become the meme team of F1, I think,
Yeah, they're
and I just think it's got worse.
the new HRT. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and Grosjean's pulled the blinder really, hasn't he? Because he's gone from driving what would have been the worst car on the grid to driving a Mercedes in France, the French GP coming up soon. He's got a test drive with Mercedes, so
Well, he shows he can drive because in IndyCar he's like getting top tens
yeah, he's been
and
doing
like
well. He's
qualifying
been
in the
doing
top
really
10.
well. Yeah.
So like we know the guy can drive. It's just a shame that Haas were never able to deliver a decent car.
No.
You know, they got a car that could, could handle, give them some point finishes, but they were never consistent enough, and we're still seeing that now. And yes, they're going to throw. They've already said they're throwing this season out the window to concentrate to the next one. But I still don't. I still wouldn't be surprised if they don't get anywhere with it.
Yep.
And it's just, I would like to see them a bit further up the grid, preferably not in those colours that they're running at the moment. Um, but
But then throwing the rumors
yeah,
of Mazepin's dad potentially buying the team.
yeah, that's picking up
Team
traction. But
Mazepin. Woo! Let's go. That'll be popular.
Team Tintin,
Oh gosh.
get them,
Here we
get the
go.
merch.
Oh gosh. But yeah, I think that summarizes the race really. Mercedes very strong, Red Bull again still very strong. Bottas needs to do
Mhm.
better. It's still Hamilton versus Verstappen. It's looking like it's going to be that throughout the entire season. Yeah, and I think I don't think we're going to get a fantastic race at Spain because Circuit de
No,
Catalunya is not known for its exciting races, but there is I think there's rain on the forecast at the minute, so who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll get another Imola style race. You never know.
be nice.
It would be nice. Great. Definitely. So I think that's everything there. The only other news that we've had in the last week, I think, is the Canadian GP has been cancelled.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I know. Good, because obviously we missed it last year. But on the flip side, we've got the Turkish Grand Prix in replacement of it, which I am a big fan of the Turkish Grand Prix. And were you saying before you're not a huge fan of it, but
I like the circuit. The circuit's really good. For F1 racing, with the cars currently as they are, I don't think it's a great circuit. Obviously, last year the weather played a part, and the weather made it a good spectacle. But with those high speed corners, I just don't think. I just think the cars are going to struggle to follow each other. I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but
probably right.
I can't see it
Probably
being
right.
that much of a spectacle.
Yeah.
But at least we get a race there again, which would be really cool.
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to see that Grand Prix back on the calendar. Full stop. Just permanent. Like, yeah. I really like the Turkish Grand Prix. And I'd like to go to it in future at some
Yeah.
point. Because they took it off just as I was about to go. I was going to go the year they took it off.
Oh no.
Gutted. Gutted. But yeah, I think that is everything for this episode. And we now have a Twitter handle for everybody to follow, which is at TopStepF1. Makes it very easy for everybody. And yeah, where can people find you, Ash?
You can find me on Twitter, Dan, at Barky Gaming. And yourself?
Barky Gaming. And it's at AirGuysGT for me. You can find me on that tag on YouTube as well. Don't forget to subscribe as well to the Top Step F1 YouTube channel. We do have the podcast episodes on there. We will have other content coming soon. But for now, thanks very much. We'll see you soon.
Take care.